Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So, in this one here, I wanted to do a Q&A video here for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. There's a lot of questions here. There's some questions actually about other things in the Walking Dead universe, but a lot of focus here on The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, and obviously the show is premiering in 11 days from now, so get excited. I really am so excited. The second we watch this show, it's going to feel like the show is back. I was actually looking at a few things, and I noticed that, like, in terms of just, like, online discussion, in terms of, like, a lot of that, it really only happens once the episode starts. Like, I looked back to The Ones Who Live and things were very, very quiet, honestly. Like, there was a definite rise, throughout February, but things just spiked out of nowhere on February 25th. And so that really is, like, generally when things start to get really exciting again. Online, like on X, people are going to start talking a lot about it. There's going to be a lot of time spent for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon trending, I feel like, this season. So, before we go any further, definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. But let's get into the very first question here. And so, Q&A. How do you feel about all the main characters in The Walking Dead right now? So Daryl, Rick, Maggie, Carol, and Negan being so safe. You forgot Michonne, but yes, Michonne is in there as well. As much as I loved Daryl Dixon, it starts to feel a bit jarring how Daryl is literally so safe every scene he's in. There's no stakes because I know he won't die. That's why I think The Ones Who Live was so exciting when it was first announced, because we heard that it was the end of Rick and Michonne's story, and that there was that fear of maybe they could die in this show. In the original The Walking Dead, the start, it felt like anybody could die, and it showed when Shane died, Lori died, Herschel, and Beth later on. No one was safe, and you even felt like maybe Rick could die, and they almost did it in season 8, and then he left for the movies in season 9. Well, I would say in terms of some of that, some of that I think is right, or I guess I would agree with, but I would definitely disagree with some points here. I think that for Rick, Daryl, and a lot of the main cast, after season 4, it felt like a lot of the main cast was going to survive, and it wasn't like, Michonne or Glenn. Like, it always felt like those characters could die at some point. Morgan, it always felt like Morgan could have died, Carol even as well, but it was certain characters that felt like they're never going to die, and that was Rick and Daryl. At first it really was them. Everyone else at that point, it was like, well, we're at this point in the comic where this character could die. Like, honestly, even for Michonne, when I really look back at The Walking Dead, before she left the show and before Rick left the show, the possibility of her dying and taking Andrea's death was always there. So it really was only as soon as Rick left the show that it made sense that Michonne was likely never going to die, because obviously she would have to reunite with Rick at some point. I would say, really it was once season 7 started, that's where it was like, okay, these characters can't really die anymore. But in terms of the spinoffs and all that, like, I honestly don't really have an issue with it, because I also would disagree with that too. I think with The Ones Who Live, we knew they were surviving to the finale, and we knew that they probably wouldn't kill him off in the end, because there likely was going to be other stories, because you have to have Rick reunite with Daryl and stuff. So I know that they do seem like they're so safe, but they are building towards a bigger story here. They're building towards the end. It's not like we're like just starting a new story here. I would say we're halfway or 3/4 of the way to ending this whole Walking Dead arc, right? And I'm saying starting from season 1. Like, I think we're definitely over the halfway mark for sure. They're going through all of what they're going through right now. And yes, it's going to seem like they can't die, but the second that Endgame series starts, I think any of those characters could die. And that's the one thing I will say too, though, is like, that's sort of what we're assuming, but a lot of changes happen. Sometimes actors don't want to come back, this and that. I could see some of these actors literally just being like, I want off the show now. My time as, I guess, whoever is going to be saying this, like whatever character, I'm kind of done now. And so maybe they're written off, right? Like, I could see Dead City maybe ending with Negan's death. Like, that is very possible. But Q&A. Whatever happened to Tales of the Walking Dead? It was so cool seeing new stories in the Walking Dead world focused on the characters we don't know. Could we ever see a spinoff like the first 3 seasons of Fear, where we meet new characters that we learn to love over 6 or 7 seasons with no crossovers at all? Also, if we ever got another story focused on the Walking Dead game, what would you want it to be about? Like the location, the plot, characters, gameplay, etc. I love all your videos. Daryl Dixon is almost back. Well, first of all, thank you so much. A lot of questions you wrote here. Well, in terms of your first question, whatever happened to Tales of the Walking Dead, I think they just failed that first season because it really wasn't that relatable. There was nothing really that exciting. And I think they could have done a better job overall, but they just sort of, I don't know. The writing was just very off. It was the overall direction of the show. That's really what the issue was. The acting and stuff, all that was fine. It was the direction of every episode. So again, it was overall the writing and whatnot. So I think, at least in my opinion anyways, it came from the writing and whatnot. And in terms of like a spinoff of, the first 3 seasons of Fear, where you see new characters, this and that, or a new spinoff like Fear, yes, I've talked about that a lot. I think that that is the next direction. Honestly, at next month at Comic-Con, I'm really hoping that Gimple announces that there's going to be a new spinoff coming out focusing on an original story. I think that will be a lot of fun. I think my excitement for The Walking Dead will go through the roof. Honestly, I think that I just hope that that is what they do, because I think that that's sort of what's missing. Like last year and the year before when Fear the Walking Dead was airing, and like World Beyond and Tales of the Walking Dead, the reason why those shows were awesome is because it always gave us something to watch when The Walking Dead wasn't on. And even though some people weren't fans of it, it was always something else happening in the Walking Dead universe. And right now, Daryl Dixon and Dead City feel like the same thing. And even like the Rick and Michonne show, right? Like if they make a season 2 and all that, it's all going to feel like it's a part of the same show. It almost feels like, it's 3 parts to a season of The Walking Dead, like a season 12 or something. So I just think that what they should really do here is have another story out there and do an original story on new characters. It could be the same setting, just being out in the woods or whatever. It all comes down to the writing and how you can make that story really great and start from the beginning of the apocalypse. I think that would be really refreshing right now. And I hope that they announce something like that next month at Comic-Con. In terms of a video game story, I would honestly just prefer season 5 of Telltale's The Walking Dead. I think they can go in so many directions with that. Q&A, we know most of the sets are down from the main show, like Alexandria, Hilltop, and other important locations. Do you think they will ever bother enough to actually set them up again to either film flashbacks or new scenes for a spin-off? I feel like it's really important for all Walking Dead fans. I think they would do that if it was like really important to the story. Like, I think if they're going to get all the characters to reunite again, yes, I could see them all going back to Alexandria, right? But I think it's going to have to take something of that, I guess just that massive of a story. Because if you look at The Ones Who Live, they all reunited at the very end in a field, right? Like, I think that's what frustrates me about that is like, yes, it was cool seeing them all together and all that was fine, but it was just that we never really saw Alexandria or like the full reunion. We just saw the family part to it. We never saw everything else. And so that's one thing that I hope that they do actually focus on in the future and sort of fix all of that. And so, I know the sets are down for those communities, but they don't really need to go back to all of them. Alexandria, I think, is important. The Kingdom's gone for sure. Like the Kingdom's for sure gone. Sanctuary, I could see them going back there. Hilltop, I think, is also kind of gone at this point because we have the bricks now. So I don't see a point to ever really going back there. But Alexandria, for sure, I think we should go back there at some point. I don't know what spinoff, but definitely at some point. Q&A, how do you feel about the current story with Negan and Maggie? Do you feel as if they've dragged it between the two? And do you feel as if they should have kept the ending conversation, the finale, for the ending of this show? See, I don't really necessarily like that conversation at the very end of The Walking Dead. Like, it really wasn't anything that I wanted for Maggie and Negan's story anyways. Like, I didn't want Maggie and Negan to just like forgive each other in that sense, because I just feel like in a situation like that, you can't. I just don't think there would be a point where anyone could ever really forgive somebody who murdered, their partner like that. I just think that would be absolutely insane. So I just, that ending there, I think it made sense for how Maggie was feeling. And obviously it opened up Negan quite a bit. But the one thing about life is when you have moments like that, that doesn't always last the longest. Like there's other stuff that could come up eventually. So that was a very cool ending. But the way Negan is right now, it doesn't necessarily ruin that ending. It's, Negan was that way for a long time afterwards. He started to do those things. Him and Annie and everyone else were together. But obviously the one thing about Negan is that the only way he knows how to survive is by doing, what he was doing. And so he resorted back to that after being far away from everyone for so long. And I think being in this situation here in New York City, that's the way that he knows how to survive. And so obviously he would act like that, and he feels like that towards Maggie, obviously. Like he feels sorry, but he is going to act like his old self when Maggie's not around, right? And so once Maggie saw that, I think he did feel a little awkward, like, she wasn't supposed to see that, right? But I think overall, it just makes sense. Like, there's been so much time that has passed. I think that it just makes sense. And honestly, they could easily have a conversation this season here in season 2 about the fact that Negan was apologizing and also just what Maggie was saying and all that. Like, I could literally see that happening. They both confront each other, and then there's some sort of explanation there. Like, I don't know, for me, I know a lot of people bring up that scene, but when I watched that scene, like, to me, it didn't really seem like it was the ending. It was just a conversation where it seemed like they both felt really bad for different reasons, and they were just talking, and it seemed like they can both go their separate ways now. But it wasn't necessarily the end, because if they ever saw each other again, things would just go back to that, which is sort of the point of season 1 of Dead City, at least in my opinion. Q&A, you mentioned in a video that Daryl shoots the walker with the serum to create the super walker so they can escape from the car, but also said Carol might not know about the serum. But what if she does know about the serum and probably gave it to Daryl? Because remember, they both were on opposite sides. Carol being with Madame Genet and probably took some of the serum from her when she learns of Pouvoir's corruption, or they probably took the gun from Madame Genet's group while they were being attacked by them. I think that's also very possible, right? I think that would be really cool. I just really like the idea of, like, Daryl has this gun and Daryl doesn't mention anything about what's in the gun at all. Like, they just sort of recently saw each other, and then Carol obviously sees Daryl with the gun and thinks, oh, he's just going to shoot a walker out there or something, but he does something else, and then she's just absolutely horrified by what happens. It would be a really cool reveal, I feel like, for Carol to see the variant walker and to experience what the variant walker could do, because the variant walker is going to completely destroy all those walkers around that car. And so I think that would be, you know, for Carol to be sitting there being like, what just happened? Like, walkers don't do that, right? I think that'd be such a cool reveal. So I'm hoping for that, but it is possible that maybe Carol already knows at this point, and so yeah, but we'll have to wait and see. Q&A, who's your favorite one episode character in the Walking Dead universe, or just any that stand out? Mine would be Dr. Jenner, except he's at the very end of 105 and then World Beyond. Oh, right, yeah, because he's been in a couple of episodes, right? I would say, honestly, I'd have to go back, but I feel like Eastman might be the character, just because, like, I always forget about the character, but when I go back and rewatch that episode, it's truly iconic. It really is. It's such an amazing moment, I guess, for Eastman to teach Morgan, and I don't know, I really like the character. That episode, honestly, I wasn't expecting that episode to be that good, and that was the one episode where he just kind of popped up in the episode, and that was it. So I'd probably have to say Eastman for sure. He was a really incredible character. Q&A, do you think we will ever see a reunion between Esteban and Rick? I think probably not. Although it would be pretty cool, because I think Esteban should be alive, and he probably heard about everything that Rick did. So, you know what? I'm going to say, if they do a season 2 of The Ones Who Live, you got to bring him back. Like, it makes sense to bring him back for some sort of role. I don't even know what. But obviously, everyone's free to go wherever now. So I think that would be absolutely really amazing to see. Because Esteban's one of the best characters, right? So, yeah. But anyways, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much for all of your questions. I really enjoyed doing this. Post all your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.